Hey everybody, welcome to the Mirko Movie Guys. I'm Clint Schaffer, and this is my buddy Chad Weeks.
We're a couple guys who like movies and like to talk about movies. Clint, today we're going all the way across the pond to talk to somebody that we met at the Dubuque Film Festival. Is that correct?
We are talking to award-winning director Mr. Paul Holbrook.
He is the director of Hungry Joe and Hollow, plus some other stuff that sounds like it's pretty exciting coming out.
Yeah, so Chad and I were up at the Julian Dubuque International Film Festival last weekend.
Yep.
And ended up watching Paul's movie in one of the movie blocks that we went to, and I can't express enough. This guy puts out amazing material. Casting is awesome. Lighting is awesome. Everything is great.
Perfect. Well, let's get Paul on.
All right, with that, grab your popcorn.
Fill up your drinks.
Enjoy the show. Well, Paul, welcome to the show. Happy to have you. How about you introduce yourself to our listeners here?
Pleasure to be here, guys. I'm Paul Holbrook. I'm a writer and director from the UK.
Perfect. And you're coming to us from a film festival right now, sitting outside a pub in London.
Yeah, I'm in Islington in London at the Unrestricted View Film Festival. We're up for a few awards, so we've come down here. But yeah, I couldn't find a quiet corner, so apologies to your listeners if it's a bit noisy in the background.
That's all right. I dig it. Well, the one concern that we have is the closed captioning going to come up here for our listeners in the United States. So,
well, you got two things to contend with. You got my accent, and you got the fact I'm in a boozer. So, yeah, good luck with that.
Absolutely. So, one of the first things I'd like to talk about and get your opinion on this. I want to talk about the two movies, Hungry Joe and Hollow, because Clint and I both watched those. Love them, by the way. But
cool.
I want to get your opinion. Do you want to give away spoilers on this? Because like Hollow is one that I kind of want to, but I don't want to. I want to go with your opinion on this. Should we give away spoilers in this interview here?
No.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I mean, Hungry. Yeah, no. Both of them have kind of got a little thing that, add a little bit of weight to the film, maybe.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. You're cool. It's your show, guys.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I just want to see how you feel about it, and like we can do that totally. It'll work great. So, we talked about sound here a little bit. That was one of the things that I'd like to talk about on Hungry Joe, because the sound is absolutely haunting. My wife and I were watching that together, and the first thing that she said is nope, don't like that. Like just listening to people eat and stuff like that. Do you have anything specific that you do that gets those excellent sounds, those crisp, clear sounds that are so haunting right off the bat?
I mean, on Hungry Joe, to be honest, that has to go down to our sound design team. Over here, there's a guy called Owen Shirley that really pushed to elevate those sounds to the level they're at now. To be honest, I was a little bit, I wasn't sure whether we pushed it a bit too far, but obviously the film itself is supposed to be repulsive and it's supposed to make you feel uneasy. So the sound designers had fun with it and really just pushed those sounds to really uncomfortable levels, and he was proved right, because in all the festivals it's played at and the reviews it gets, it's the sound that seems to affect people more than anything, and that's the thing they come away from mostly is how repulsive it sounded.
What was the inspiration behind Hungry Joe? I mean, like, as far as, because I almost got like this like gluttony feel like behind it, but what was the direction that you were taking that in, or where did the thought come from?
Well, initially, me and my directing partner on this one, a guy called Sam Dole, we were on our way back from the film festival, and we were talking about what film we were going to make next and the stuff we really like. And we wanted to make a film that, because we self-funded Hungry Joe, so we were spending our own money on it. So we wanted to make something that we genuinely loved ourselves, as wanted to have fun with something. And we started to talk about how much we used to really like, like the Twilight Zone or Tales from the Crypt, or these little funky stories, or the one-off episodes of the X-Files, the Monster of the Week style episodes, where they were standalone, they were creepy. But they still had this element of being grounded, and therefore, they stuck with you a little bit. And then we just started talking about freaks in general. And we found this story in Napoleonic France about a guy called Terrar or Terrari. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce it. Hey. Oh, thank you.
It's all right.
Did I take your seat? Sorry, buddy. Yeah, so there was a guy called Terrari, and it's a long story, but your listeners can look it up. But it was essentially a guy in Napoleonic France that had this condition. Sorry? No, I'm good. I got one somewhere. I left it in there, and I've already got one. Thank you, mate.
Yeah, they're very busy.
Yeah, no, you're good. Sorry, guys.
No worries at all. I love it.
This isn't live, right? You can edit.
Yeah, I dig it. This is awesome.
Yeah, so this guy, Terrar. So it was a guy in Napoleonic France that had this insatiable appetite, an incurable appetite. He wasn't overweight, but he could eat and eat and eat, never be full, he'd never gain weight. And the only thing people talk about, I'll let this mic go past. The only thing that people talk about is that this guy had this horrible smell to him. He stunk, and people couldn't be in the same room as him. And this guy eventually joined a freak show, and people would throw their shoes on stage. He'd eat their shoes. They'd throw horse manure on stage. He'd eat that. He'd eat everything. And he lived with this ailment for years and years. Eventually joined the army and would kind of like, he would eat evidence or something. He did something in the army anyway. And eventually he found this French surgeon to take on his case because he was so uncomfortable and he couldn't satisfy this hunger. And the surgeon couldn't find anything medically wrong with him. Absolutely nothing wrong with him whatsoever. There are medical journals you can look up and read about all this stuff. So anyway, this surgeon guy took on his case and he moved into this hospital. And then overnight, this guy started then getting up in the night and eating the dead bodies and drinking the blood from the morgue and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, you know, it's creepy as you like. And then one day he just vanished off the face of the earth. And in this little French Napoleonic town, like, first dogs started going missing and cats, and then eventually children started going missing, and then it became a bit of like a boogeyman story, folklore. And that was we started there, and we were like, that's a crazy, creepy story, and we wanted to write something kind of based on that and contemporize it. But as we started working on it, we found it just lacked kind of emotional depth. And then we soon just realized that actually the more heartbreaking story, while still retaining that kind of gross out, crazy Twilight Zone feel, was, the story of the mother and how you could possibly love somebody like that if you've given birth to a monster. Where does the maternal instinct kind of dissipate? And then, from there we developed it to what it is now.
Well,
that's a long answer, but there you go.
No, that's somewhere in the back of my mind. I've heard the story. Especially the part where he's in the army and stuff like that, because they were having to pay like a ton of money just to keep him fed while he was in the army and stuff like that. So I've heard this somewhere. That's awesome. I love that you modeled it after that, and you picked the perfect person to play the mother. Laura Baston is right. Is that right?
Yeah.
I like her a lot. Like she's got a very haunting demeanor to her. She sells these roles for you. Like this one being a horror, she sold that perfectly.
Well, I would say on both Hungry Joe and Hollow, her performances there are just, they're so believable right off the bat, right? I mean, like when she's especially in Hungry Joe, when she's portraying the mother, I mean, you feel like she is the mother of that child, right? And you feel that, you start feeling that, you talked about that maternal instinct, you kind of start feeling that going away scene by scene and just kind of deteriorating over time. And the way she portrayed that, I thought was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, I've worked with Laura Baston a lot, and the reason I stick with her is because she just, like you say, she gives you performances that kind of carry the emotional essence of the films that I make. She's staunch in her belief that when she works on a job, she has to find the emotional truth and the psychological truth of, her character or where the story takes that character. She's so committed, and she's so easy to work with, and we just click. I think we've worked together 5 or 6 times now. And it's at that point now where when I start writing, it doesn't take long if it's a female character where it just ends up, I'm starting to write for her strengths, because I know what she can do. And I know I can take her to kind of emotional depths where sometimes you might think, that's going to be difficult to get an actor to go there. That's going to be really difficult to try and retain that sense of emotional turmoil. But she just, I mean, she's a really happy person in real life. She's lovely and bubbly, but
Really?
she's just got this knack for really connecting with human instincts on a really deep level. And that's what I love about her. Yeah, she's great.
Okay, I gotta
Soon
ask.
to break
then,
through, I hope. So you guys need to shout about her over there because she needs a break.
Well, I have to ask then. You know, you talked about just, you know, she's a happy person. You know, outside of movies and whatnot. How is she on scene? Like, if you shoot one of these like crazy emotional scenes, does she snap right into it, or is it a process?
It's definitely a process. I mean, she will take a good 2, 3, 4 weeks to get herself where she needs to get. And on set, she's quiet. She's very quiet on set. I mean, when you're not working, she's life and soul. But on set, she's quiet. She kind of internalizes a lot of what's going on and uses that to give us what we get on screen. She asks a lot of questions. Because she wants to know exactly, you know, the minutia of every emotional beat that is in the script and why it's there, backstory and everything else. She's just insanely, she has great instinct for sure. So a lot of it is, you know, I can't take much credit for it. A lot of it is in her instinct and in a way her insecurities too, because she's quite an insecure actress in a way. She wants to do such a good job. Even, you know, she doesn't shout about herself anywhere near as much as I shout about her, you know, about how great she is. So I think those insecurities help because it means that she does want to really connect on a personal level before she believes she can give a performance that warrant, you know, the levels we're looking for. But I mean, the process for her, I mean, she does take her own time. Like for Hollow, she lost a lot of weight, and that was the thing. She kind of attached grief in Hollow to weight loss. So she wanted to make sure that she felt like she was missing something. Obviously, she can't necessarily relate to someone who's lost a child of a drink drive accident or what have you, but it sounds maybe overly simplified. But if she's missing something as simple as food, maybe the feeling, she can use that feeling to, you know, attach to something else. Yeah.
When we watched that in Dubuque, that was one of the first things I thought of was you see her, and it's like Hollow is a perfect way to just describe her in that movie. Like that's perfect because you can she looks hollow, like and just her haunting demeanor, like that's all. It's very hollow. So it's perfectly titled. She was perfectly cast for that.
Yeah, exactly. And we went there like that. We talked about that a lot. Like even things like a simple thing like, you know, this isn't in the film, but when we're talking about developing a character, like even a simple thing, laughing at a joke, you can't do that anymore because you're so hollow. You don't know what a joke is anymore. You can't feel what a joke is. You can't feel what good food tastes like. You can't feel anything. And if you can't feel anything, all you've got left is that driving force of grief and anger and revenge and hatred and everything else. And if that's all you've got, how do you find your way out the other side? Yeah. But it's all about connection. It's all about connection between me and her and the story, being the story and everything else. And she's just one of those actresses that goes deep.
Well, hats off to both of you on that. Keep casting her. Yeah. So we want to keep seeing you and her work together. So with Hungry Joe too, I wanted to throw out there. Actually, both Hungry Joe and Hollow. Chad and I were talking about the cinematic feel of your movies. Out of a lot of the movies that Chad and I watch, yours has an incredibly professional look to it. The lighting is amazing. The sound is amazing that goes into it. All of your shots feel just spot on. How do you get to that level?
Paul, hey, when you showed that scene with the fire and Hungry Joe, like I got a brand new TV this last year, and I love that scene. Just seeing that big fire burning on my TV, it looks so crisp and so awesome that I had to go grab my wife. Like, look at how good this looks. And there's a ton of stuff like that. There's where she's looking at, like in Hollow, when she's looking at the antagonist there, and you can see the camera tilt and walking up the stairs. You get the undershot from like there were so many cool shots there that I just totally fangirled out over the cinematography on there.
Oh, thanks very much, man. I mean, yeah, a lot of kudos has to go to my DOP, which is a guy which I think you guys met at JDIF, James Oldham. Similarly to Laura, we've kind of settled now. Like I've made a lot of short films, but with James, I've kind of found somebody that I can work with on a really personal level. He's another person that really connects to the material on a deep level and a creative level. He's very down to earth and open, and he likes to have fun, and he wants things to look great. My job essentially is to tell a good story and to make sure we get good performances. And yeah, I want my stuff to look great, but I kind of need to hand that over to somebody that knows how to make something look great. I've got ideas as to why a shot's there and what it's doing, and how it's driving the story. But James will come in and go, well, yeah, that's great. I know why it's doing that, but let me show you some. And then he'll do things, and I go, it's beautiful. He's a wonderful cinematographer, and everybody. And same with sound with our sound team. It's been the same for like 3 or 4 films now. So I think it's just finding your people. And when I try and raise standards on screen, 9.9 times out of 10, those standards are raised by me bringing on people that can do jobs better than I can. So if the sound's great, it's because I've gone and found a great sound guy. If the cinematographer is great, I found a great DOP and actresses and everything else.
Yeah.
Rather than just settle. If I want the standards to be higher, I need to be work with people that are a lot better than I am at what I want to see on screen.
Perfect. So I'm also a sucker for a good transition scene, and you had a lot of those. There's some in Hungry, like in Hollow, where she's like looking back, kind of memories, and then cut into that. But one of my favorites was was in Hungry Joe, where she's examining herself and then cuts the egg yolk. Is that your design, or who comes up with these ideas? Because I couldn't even imagine making that cut to cooking breakfast from that moment, and just I don't know. That's so cool.
I mean, yeah, that was us. I mean, it was always a case of us wanting to attribute food with emotion in Hungry Joe, and how we could make food feel a little bit intrusive on her life.
Yeah.
So to cut from the effects the child is having on her body to something like a greasy fried egg,
yeah,
it's kind of you get a sense of what she's feeling about what the child's doing to her body, and it's food that's to blame. I mean, it's almost, you could almost look at that and say it would be a corny cut if it wasn't so related to the story. Like if I just did that and it had no relation to the story just because it was funky, it would be contrived, right? So yeah, I think it's just looking at your shot list and asking yourself how you can bring the story into everything you do, whether that be transitions, whether that be your cinematography, sound, and everything else. It's not just what's on the page or what your actors are doing. It's everything, right? It's all fueling that story and that emotional, beat that we want the audience to connect with.
So you talked about Hungry Joe. You were self-funded on that, and if I remember right, on Hollow, you actually won a contest, right, for putting your script out there and actually getting some funding behind that. Could you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Hungry Joe, we funded ourselves for 25,000 English pounds. Which was essentially bank loans and credit cards and everything else, just because we were confident about the project, and we took the project to our kind of local funders in the UK, and they turned it down because they said it was too ambitious for the budgets they could offer. And to be fair to them, they were right. But we took out bank loans and credit cards and just got it done on a lot of favors and goodwill and people not being paid as much as they should be getting paid. And it opened doors for us, so it paid off. And then I think when I applied for the pitch, which is what we won the funding for Hollow, there was already now, I could point to something to say, I know how to spend an half decent budget on a short and do the job, So that helped. But yeah, Hollow was, the funding for Hollow came from a competition in the UK called The Pitch, where they offer 35,000 English pounds as a budget for a script that is adapted from a story or a passage in the Bible. So with Hollow, I said I'm a big fan of revenge films. I think they're the most emotionally relatable films for me, because we've all got anger inside us and we all see injustices in the world, and they sicken us, but we don't all have the capacity for violence. So I think that's sometimes why, for me especially, why I love hero and villain stories. You're rooting for the hero because he can do things or she can do things that you probably can't. And the villain is a representative of all the shit that's going on in the world. So I've always had a good attachment to revenge. It's always been my kind of go-to subgenre. So I essentially just looked into the Bible as to what the Bible says about revenge and God's part in that and our part in that. And from there, developed Hollow to what it is now. And the producer of the pitch is a priest as well.
Oh, wow.
So I was able to kind of knock on his door and kind of challenge him as well about what's written in the Bible, and all that kind of fueled what you ended up seeing on the screen with Hollow. Yeah.
One of my favorite lines in there was, what was it? Vengeance isn't always violent, I think was his statement there. And that was just one of those that I thought in that moment when he's telling somebody who's only thinking violent thoughts, right? And I just thought that entire little aspect of that conversation when they're sitting there in the church was incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Thought that was awesome.
Thanks, guys. It's my favorite part of the film as well. I mean, with that scene, both those scenes in the church, we had pages and pages and pages of dialogue, challenging, pulling apart, looking for nuances in, fueling subtext, and all the stuff that goes on the page in the Bible in regards to vengeance and violence and everything else, and redemption and all this kind of stuff. And then we fueled that scene with all that dialogue, but then we just cut it all away, a few days before the shoot, just to make sure that the subtext remained. And it did. When I watch that scene now, I wrote it, so it's easier for me maybe, but I can just feel that there's so much subtext bubbling away under everything they say. When they say vengeance isn't purely a violent concept, it just makes you go, okay, so what else could it be? What is it? And then you start questioning yourself and thinking. And then as an audience member, you're going, okay, well, if someone does me wrong, my instant thought is to go and whack them around the head with a bat or what have you. But there are other ways of doing things because, it's not going to feel good for you in the end. And it's not going to work out, it's going to work out equally as bad for you as it is for the guy that's getting the bat around you.
Yeah.
So the priest in this story, you can tell that he has a haunted backstory that isn't ever really expressed in there, but you can see from the scars on his knuckles that there is a story there. And have you seen the movie The Patriot?
Have I seen? Sorry,
the movie The Patriot. It's a Mel Gibson film. It's about America winning its independence from you guys and stuff, but there's a line in there where it says a shepherd must tend his flock and at times fight off the wolves. And I found that I felt like that was a good I felt that feeling when you talk to or you hear the priest and he's actually I've got to do something about this. I see this. Is that kind of what you were going for there? Can you allude to the backstory of this guy a little bit more? Just give us some behind the scenes things of what you had in
I mean, for me, he's a guy that's lived a violent life. He's a black guy that grew up in racist Britain in the 80s. And as a result of that, has probably hit out at a lot of people and been violent himself. Maybe spent some time in and out of prison as a result. Finds God, finds his calling, and uses that anger and hatred he's got to kind of help people because he's been through it. But when he asks God the question of why are you letting this person suffer, and in the Bible it's saying violent, vengeance or revenge comes in many forms or what have you. The guy could be suffering. He doesn't need to physically suffer, does he, to be suffering? Whereas I think for me it was a juxtaposition between these two characters. One has the capacity for violence because he's been violent before, so we know, she probably knows he has the capacity for violence. She doesn't. She wants it, he doesn't. And when you mix all that up, as well as kind of the responsibility he's got of representing God, if you like. So when that's challenged, because in the Bible it says, violence and revenge isn't your job, it's mine. Essentially, trust God and God will sort it out in his own good time kind of thing, I don't know the exact, that's not exactly the quote in the Bible, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's something like revenge. Thou shalt not seek revenge because revenge belongs to the Lord, or something like this. So, the vicar interprets that as bide your time. God's doing his thing. Have a bit of faith, have a bit of trust. Her challenge to that is, well, aren't you a representative of God? So if you're saying that God will take revenge and you serve God, why can't you do something about it then? And then, knowing that he's got the capacity for violence himself, knowing that he's got his own pent-up anger and rage, that kind of is the wrong thing to say to a guy that's on the verge anyway. And that's almost, that's what makes him to start challenge God as well. If I am your vessel, use me.
Yeah.
If I'm not your vessel, then you do it. You hurry up and do something about it, because this woman's suffering and this guy's going scot-free.
Yeah, you can almost see that point when he had also had enough, right? Where it's like, I've casting my prayers. I have spoke to God, but now at this point in time, I'm going to step in, right? And if it's God's will to stop me, then he shall give me a sign and stop me, right? And I just loved how that got turned, because you seen where his breaking point as well, and I just thought that was a powerful moment as well.
Both characters.
And essentially, God does give him a sign, because when he gets to that house and he bashes the door down, he sees that the guy's suffering, and then it all becomes clear, and you go, okay, well, God is taking his revenge. It's not the violent revenge that we see as the only option for revenge, but the guy's suffering. He's living in squalor. He's remorseful. And you go, okay, well, he is suffering. God is doing his bit. So who am I to step in and get in the way? And that's why he says, he sees for the first time. So in a way, I mean, spoiler alert again, I suppose, but in regards to how the vicar ends that film, or the priest ends that film, you guys don't know what vicar is, how the priest ends that film, he's the only one that ends it in a good way. His faith is intact.
Yeah. That's exactly
the other two people,
Yeah, that's exactly right. It all came full circle, and it's like, that is a cool finish to that movie. And again, I don't want to spoil it, but that just coming full circle, and it's like, wow. When you're done with it, you just sit there and you're like, wow, look at all the things that changed in this film here. Yeah. Everything, everybody their roles had all changed, and it just very, very powerful ending to that.
The closing of that is that was just one of those where I think that we were just sitting there looking at the screen like, wow, like we got to process like this whole transition
afterwards.
Yeah, and that was amazing. You did bring up the guy living in squalor, right? Which there's two things I want to talk about. First off, that the guy that played that character is not a traditional actor, right? If I remember talking to you at the film festival.
Yeah, so he's an actor called Chris Hitchin. He's doing big things now. He was in Ken Loach's last film. He's now doing loads of TV work in the UK. So he's getting big over here. But 3 years ago, he was a pipe fitter. And he was street cast by Ken Loach. Did a great job, and from there he's got a calling for it. But he's another actor that's just, you're talking about the process that Laura has to go through to get where she needs to get to. Chris is the opposite. Chris is, tell me what to do, I'll flick a switch and I'll do it. Because he's just a natural. It's a different process for him. Because what you get from Chris is grounded reality. That's what he does very well. He's from a working class background. He's from a pretty rough area. He can flick a switch and be people that he knows and relates to. Yeah.
I wondered if that was the case because that confrontational scene with him and the vicar, like they got, like, that was very, very real. Like, it felt confrontational. It felt like that came natural to him, like, to be aggressive like that. Like,
we were asking each other when he gets in the priest's face and gives him that little headbutt, right? Like that, like, challenge me kind of moment.
Yeah.
It's like we were questioning, was that scripted, or was that him just saying, this is what I would do in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, the direction on the day was, there's a racist insult there. Get rid of him. Get that vicar off your doorstep as quickly as you can without swearing. He wasn't allowed to swear. The producers wouldn't allow us swearing. So that's why he says, piss off. I think ideally he would have probably said the F word there. But yeah, we weren't allowed to swear words. So we had to kind of show that aggression without swear words. So yeah, that's when the physicality came into it.
That was great. The other point on living in squalor that you talked about in up in Dubuque there, which was, it was difficult shooting this during the time, just with all the pandemic and everything that was happening. And it sounds like that mess that he was living in got taken away from you a couple times. So could you walk us through just a little bit of the frustrations on shooting that?
Yeah, horror story that was. So basically, because we were shooting through COVID, the various creative teams had to take it in turns to go into the house. So, and in between those teams, there was a COVID cleanup team. So the production design would go in, they would come out, a COVID cleanup team would come in and spray everything and come out, and then the lighting team would go in and light, come out, COVID team would go in, spray everything, come out, and then me and the DOP would go in, and the actors and everything else. So our production design team went in first, dressed this house amazingly, litter everywhere, rubbish everywhere, the walls, it's terrible. Beer cans, the lot, drug paraphernalia, this guy was living in a hovel of a place. COVID team go in, go out. Lighting team go in, go out. We're none the wiser. I go in with my DOP, and we're looking at a complete shell. There's nothing there because the COVID cleanup team have thought all the rubbish was genuine rubbish rather than set design, and just put everything in the bin. So yeah, like in the script, the priest, is supposed to look around and be like, "Whoa, look how this guy's living," and the camera was supposed to pan around and see all this terrible squalor that he was living in, and we never had that, so because it was gone. So all we had in exchange was our actors. So a lot of that scene with the two actors, with the priest and the guy that's had his nose busted, a lot of that was improv, because it was a case of me saying to those two actors, "This is what we were going to do. We're going to do a lot of this visually. We don't have that anymore. So it's over to you guys to convince the audience that why you've changed your mind and why you're full of remorse." So like the guy's walls were supposed to have like "I'm sorry" written all over, and there's supposed to be newspapers everywhere with "I'm sorry" written on it, and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, in a way, it kind of worked, because all I had without the production design were two great actors. Point a camera at them, motivate them as to what's going on, and they did the job. And I feel like it's pretty believable. I buy it.
The thumb movement of the priest when he puts his hand on his hand there, and he just does that little bit of movement. It was one of those where that small gesture, in my eyes, is what made that real, right? Like, exactly. I genuinely felt like I was looking at a broken man and someone who was truly there to help him.
Yep.
And that
was totally improvised. That's not in the script, that touch. And not only the thumb movement, so it's the touch, which was improvised, but also the reaction to the touch. The fact that he looks at that hand so alien, like nobody has ever touched him tenderly before. Yeah. No one has ever touched him with love before. And the look in his face when he registers what that feels like. That's both those two actors. None of that is in the script. That's all improv.
Yeah. I'm just somebody you've been so rude to and stuff like that, and you still love there. That sort of thing. That's great. So another theme that I've noticed between Hungry Joe and Hollow, there's a lot of spiders, and I see that there's I know that there's a transition in Hollow, with the character, but is there anything else behind the spiders? Because there's a movie called Enemy that like really focuses on that too, and I didn't know if is there any type of I'm just curious, because it just does seem like it's very
I mean, I'm petrified of spiders, so they are the embodiment of horror, for me. The spider in Hungry Joe was just purely a bonus. When we shot in that bathroom, there was a spider in the corner, and we needed a transition for the bathtub to change color. So we needed something in between, and we were like, there's a spider in the corner, shoot that. So that was not in the script, which was unintentional. With Hollow, it was a case of wanting to show the audience that her moral compass is so strong she can't even bring herself to kill an insect, even one as scary and horrible as a spider in my head, And if she can't kill a spider, how on earth can she kill a human being? And then obviously that transitions to when something happens with a spider.
Yeah,
that gives us the sense that there's been an internal turning point there, where she's overcome something, which is her own moral compass. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I would always resort to spiders just because I find them terrifying.
Yeah, kind of like a Batman.
No other reason.
I'm scared of Batman, so I'm scared of bats.
Well, I tell you what, just on Hollow alone, I mean, congratulations on the success that you've seen on this too, because y'all have been winning some awards in all of your film festivals too, haven't you?
Say that again, sorry. Hollow.
So you've been winning some awards through your film festivals with Hollow, correct?
Yeah, we've won a few. Yeah, not as many as Hungry Joe. Hungry Joe went crazy. That played across the world, won millions of awards, got us crazy meetings. We had a meeting with Bob Weinstein about the feature version of it. It's going crazy. With Hollow, it's a long short, so it's been a bit of a harder sell to film festivals, to be honest. But when it has played at a film festival, it's done really well. Audience have responded to it really well, and it's won some awards. So yeah, I'm happy. But the issue with Hollow has been the running time. Festivals don't like 30-minute short films. But yeah, when they've taken a punt on it, it's done well and won awards. Yeah, and that's where I am now. I'm in this film festival, and we're we're up for 4 awards tonight.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well, yeah.
We're up for best sound, best director, best film, and best actress. So all the things you guys mentioned.
Yeah, totally get it. You deserve them. Those were awesome, and it really did steal the show. In that short block that we watched, it's like wow, it really was. It was.
Yeah.
I can't wait until my parents and I I grew up on horror movies and stuff like that. I can't wait until my parents can watch this movie and stuff like that. It's fantastic, and I actually love this new genre. Somebody at that Dubuque Film Festival mentioned that this new short form of horror films or whatever, that's really exciting because you don't have to be invested for 2 hours in a movie or whatever. You can get I really like this. It's almost like you said, like a like a Twilight Zone type of story, but just a little bit longer. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I just like genre with emotional depth. That's my thing. If I can squeeze kind of some emotional depth and relatability to the audience, but retain the fun of genre, that for me, that's magic. That's what I love.
For sure.
So another thing I was going to ask as far as for what's next, because I think I seen you had a movie that you're working on maybe with Laura again for 2023.
So yeah, if you guys are going to be at Dubuque next year, I'm sure I'll see you there. We've got 2 films that we're going to be submitting to Dubuque. Not thrillers, not horrors, not dramas. These are one's a very they're both very light-hearted. One's a light-hearted kind of, I suppose it's a comedy called Shiny, where we street cast 2 local kids. And we've got another one called Old Windows, which was actually written by Laura as well.
Oh, wow.
Which is just a 2-hander. 2 great actors, a British actor called Larry Lamb, who's pretty big over here. He was in a comedy called Gavin and Stacey that went, stratospheric over here. Old Windows is just 2 very good actors in a room talking, but it's very engaging film. Like, you lean into it. So I'm hoping that both those 2 play at Dubuque next year, so we can come and see you. I've got 3 features that are kind of at various stages of development, funding, and all that kind of thing. One, Hungry Joe, the feature version, is optioned by a company over here, and they're out fundraising now. I've got a feature film called Wolves,
awesome.
which is an Irish film, and I've got another one called Snog, which is a coming of age, very British coming of age, light-hearted story about an ex-Jehovah's Witness trying to get his first kiss with a girl.
I like it. Paul, one of the things that I always like to ask is, if you had to recommend one movie, maybe it's one of your movies, or maybe it's something that inspired you, or something just a random movie that you say a film lover should watch this movie. Because like I said, we brand ourselves. We're a couple guys who like movies and like to talk about movies. What would you recommend to us to watch, like just off the cuff?
I mean, I'm sure you've seen it, but without a doubt, for me, the only perfect film that's ever been made is Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver, great, yeah,
Great movie.
Great call.
I am so in awe of that movie. I watch it 4, 5, 6 times a year and just try and learn from it. It's the way it makes you feel is just unbelievable.
Yeah,
I love that movie.
4 or 5. I love that. That's perfect. That's exactly what I want to hear.
Well, Paul, we look forward to continuing to watch the material that you're pushing out. I will tell you that you got 2 fans over here in the States that can't wait for your next project. So,
you guys, thank you very much. You're legends.
Real quick, how do we watch? Hungry Joe is on your website right now. Can you rattle that off real quick so that the viewers can check it out?
Yeah, I mean, my website is www.paulholbrook.co.uk. Very simple. But most of my stuff is you can probably Google most of my stuff and it comes up. Alter and Short of the Week and all that kind of stuff.
Perfect.
All right. Well, hey, good luck at the film festival. Hope you win all 4 of those awards, and we'll hopefully have you on the show again if you're willing to come back on and have another chat with us in the future.
Definitely, yeah. Apologies again for the bad sound. Like next time, I'll find a quiet corner. I promise.
I love it. I think it adds something to it. This is perfect.
All right.
You're
Thanks, Paul. Have a good one.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, that was an awesome conversation with Paul.
Absolutely. I think that went really well. I can't wait to have him back on. He's talking about a movie upcoming that has mermaids. He
a horror movie with mermaids.
A horror movie about mermaids. He said it was a grounded, very, very grounded British film about mermaids, and it's a horror. And I think Laura's involved in that too. So we got to talk about that.
Well, I tell you what, I would tell anybody out there, go to Paul's website, watch Hungry Joe. It is absolutely awesome. I think it's a short 22-minute watch. So an easy watch, but it is
not an easy watch.
Well, yeah,
That's a tough watch,
That is
but it's going to be haunting. It's going to stick with you. You're going to be thinking about it for a while.
Yeah, and then keep your eye out for whenever Hollow gets released, because that's another one that's I think about 30-minute runtime, and it is absolutely amazing as well. Paul does an amazing job directing these. You got Laura in there with superb acting. The
whole cast was great.
Everybody, yeah. So hats off to the whole crew. So if you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell to get notified. And with that, the credits are rolling.
The lights are coming on.
That's the end of the show.